Good evening. My name is Dr. Raju Ishwaran. I'll be speaking on tibial tubercle osteotomy for patellofemoral instabilities. And these are the four headings in which I will structure this talk: indications, a proper case, the surgical technique, and the post op protocol. Now, coming to indications of tibial tubercle osteotomy, if there is patella alta or if there is increased tibial tubercle trochlear groove distance causing excessive lateralization of the tibial tuberosity and of the entire extensor mechanism, these form two indications to do a tibial tubercle osteotomy. Now let's look at our patient. He's a 17-year-old boy with multiple episodes of right-sided patellar instability. The lateral X-ray provides a wealth of information in a patellofemoral instability patient, sometimes as much as you would expect from a CT scan or any higher investigations. I like to look at the Cato-Deschamps ratio for calculating the patellar height with respect to the tibial articular surface. In this particular boy, it was 1.2, which is sort of the upper limit for patella alta. Anything higher than 1.2, I would be very keen to do a distalization osteotomy. The other thing which is very easily evident in a good lateral view like this is that there is trochlear dysplasia. There is a de jure type C trochlear dysplasia with the crossing sign and the double contour clearly seen in this lateral view. I also like to check for alignment. In this particular instance, even though it was slightly on the lateral side, it is still within acceptable limits. I don't envisage doing any realignment surgery for this particular boy. CT scan is something which I would always do because I want to know the TTTG distance. Here you can see some asymmetry, maybe a mild component of patella alta. You see the patella engaging on the right side, but no patella engagement on the other side. So maybe that's an indicator, and maybe it's trochlear dysplasia with the de jure type C trochlea. And the CT scan most importantly shows that the tibial tubercle trochlear groove distance on the right side is increased in comparison to the normal left side, where it is 20 millimeters on the left and it's around 26 millimeters on the right side. Anything more than 20, I take that as a threshold to do a medialization osteotomy or a tibial tubercle osteotomy. So maybe here I would consider this particular patient as an ideal case for doing a tibial tubercle osteotomy. To calculate the TTTG distance, you just need to tell your radiologist to superimpose two images, one showing trochlea at its deepest and the other showing the proximal tibia with the tibial tuberosity at the most prominent. The perpendicular distance between these 2 points forms the tibial tubercle trochlear groove distance. So now coming to the surgical technique, I think this particular boy is the right case for doing a tibial tubercle osteotomy. I would always combine it with an MPFL reconstruction, and as in case with any orthopedic surgery where a bone and a soft tissue component needs to be done, I would do the bony component first and the soft tissue component later. So first a tibial tubercle osteotomy, fix it, get it out of the way, and then an MPFL reconstruction. Now there are two kinds of tibial tubercle osteotomy. In case of patella alta, you could simply do a distalization. The aim is to make the Cato-Deschamps ratio 1. And you could do a medialization osteotomy as well. It is always useful to know that when you do medialization or distalization, sometimes they are interrelated due to the proximal tibial anatomy. It has been calculated and published that a centimeter of distalization automatically causes 4 millimeters of medialization. So that is a measurement which must be factored in your mind while doing the pre-op planning for your patient. Again, unlike arthroscopic surgeries, it is a open surgery. You need to give a generous incision. It needs to be a big incision to expose at least 6 to 10 centimeters of the proximal tibia centered around the tibial tuberosity. This is how I like to plan the osteotomy. I like to have at least a 6 centimeter long fragment, and I would like to pass two or at least three 4.5 millimeter standard screws with washers through the fragment so as to fix the osteotomy. And this is the rough planning that I do, leaving adequate space between each of these screws so as to not generate any unnecessary stress risers. It's a sloping osteotomy. It is also useful to remember that the proximal tibia is triangular in shape. The green margin represents the lateral side, the black is the medial side, and blue is the posterior cortex. So the lateral side of the proximal tibia is almost vertical, and the medial side is quite horizontal in comparison, and that makes a key difference in which way our saw is angled while doing this osteotomy. The saw is almost horizontal, parallel to the floor when you want to do an osteotomy of the lateral side, whereas when you want to do an osteotomy of the medial side, it becomes a little more inclined or a little bit more vertical. You would want to have a osteotomy line which is parallel to the posterior tibial cortex, so that when you shift the fragment medially, you don't have any obligate anteriorization or posteriorization of the fragment. And once you fix it with the desired number of screws, usually two at least, or maybe ideally three, you might note that the small portion on the medial side overhangs. And since this is a subcutaneous portion of the tibia, you might want to chamfer it, otherwise, it will be uncomfortable for the patient. I'll take you through a few intraoperative pictures. Again, as I said, the incision is a generous incision, and I like to use two K wires to mark the proximal and the distal ends of the osteotomy. I always like to pre-drill 2 or 3 holes, as in this particular instance. Now, these K wires serve as guide wires for me to guide the direction of where my osteotomy is going to take. Once the osteotomy is complete, I ensure that the fragment is easily mobile and then fix it into proper position. This is the post-operative X-ray of this particular patient. Again, bicortical purchase is quite essential to ensure a secure fixation. So 3 4.5 millimeter bicortical screws generally offer a good and secure fixation for this particular fragment. Now coming to post-op, I like to keep my patients non-weight bearing for at least a month. I would have them on the PTO brace, which is a special kind of a brace which pulls the patella medially. And I would initiate immediately close chain range of motion. In fact, on the table, I would like to check how much range of motion the patient has, and I would institute that in the post-op protocol. This is the post-op X-ray. Generally, most osteotomies would have healed very nicely at the end of 3 months. And if you notice, you can also see the femoral tunnel for the MPFL reconstruction. My technique of MPFL reconstruction is adapted from what I learned from Professor David Dijur. The patellar fixation is transosseous, and I use a single screw on the femoral side, and that's the tunnel for the MPFL reconstruction. One area of slight concern is the potential for compartment syndrome, and a lot of authors have advocated the routine use of a prophylactic anterolateral fasciotomy. Using the same dissecting scissors, you can do a prophylactic fasciotomy. I generally don't like to do that. I have not faced this kind of a problem so far. I like to do this portion without the tourniquet. Maybe that helps. And then I do the MPFL reconstruction with the tourniquet. I do this portion without the tourniquet. So that completes the presentation on tibial tubercle osteotomy. I thank you very much for your kind attention.